Hi booktube, Aaron here, hope you're doing okay. Today I've got a special tag. It's the Shakespeare journey tag, and it's a special Shaketember tag created by the hosts of Shaketember this year. So that's Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse, Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading, and Nicole from A Day of Small Things. And I was very kindly tagged by Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading. So thank you, Kelly. And loads of really cool, really great booktubers have already done this tag, and so I'm going to do my best to add my voice to the choir. So I'll do my best. So the first prompt here is, what was your first experience reading Shakespeare, and what was it like? And I really can't remember. Um, I was introduced to Shakespeare quite young. It was always kind of around, whether we were watching the film adaptations or reading bits out. We used to like act bits out to each other, and we'd get out the dressing up box and we'd wear capes and we'd have our swords or jesters' hats or whatever. So yeah, Shakespeare was always kind of around in the house, and the sort of collected Shakespeare was in a really accessible place on the bookshelf in the living room. So yeah, I've memories of just sort of flicking through. So even though before school I'd never read a play all the way through, I'd certainly seen film adaptations of Romeo and Juliet and of Hamlet, and so I had a familiarity, so that intimidation wasn't there quite as much. Um, so yeah, I can't remember the first time, but yeah, Shakespeare was always around for me. Number two, has the reading of a Shakespeare play ever brought you to tears? If so, what was the scene and where were you when it happened? Um, that hasn't happened to me when I've been reading a play. And I was recently watching the Intelligence Squared debate um, on Shakespeare versus Milton, who is the sort of king of English literature between the two of them. And to make the case, they were sort of reading out excerpts, and they read out a bit from Much Ado About Nothing, which is one of my favourites. It was probably the play that got me um, really into Shakespeare, and I suppose getting me to read him on my own terms, I suppose. And so that there are bits of Much Ado About Nothing which I just really love, and just feel like I have, I don't know, a relationship with certain bits of that play that I don't have with other Shakespeare plays yet. Um, and this is one of my favourite bits that they read out, which is just after a wedding that's gone terribly wrong. So Claudio has rejected Hero. Hero has to pretend to be dead. Beatrice is really angry about the fact that because she's a woman, she can't show that she's angry in the same way a man can. But also in all this heightened emotion and all this drama, Beatrice and Benedict, who have been bickering and having one of the best banter wars in all of English literature, are finally actually saying how they feel about each other as well. And in all of this is just a great moment when yeah, Beatrice is just saying, she's just being really honest, I think, about how she feels about the whole, just the whole thing, and it's got nothing to do about how they feel about each other, but I still find it just really moving. So she's thinking about this, you know, these men who have slandered her cousin, and she's saying, oh, that I slandered, scorned, dishonoured my kinswoman. Oh, that I were a man. What, bear her in hand until they come to take hands, and then with public accusation, uncovered slander, unmitigated rancour. Oh God, that I were a man, I would eat his heart in the marketplace. And yeah, just something with that moment, totally out of context. They didn't read the rest of the scene, and they just came into it mid-action. But that, got me on the edge. And there are probably other bits in Much Ado About Nothing that would just get me on the edge. Number 3, are there any people that have played a significant part in your Shakespeare journey? So definitely my dad, with Romeo and Juliet being one of his favourite plays, and I think definitely the driving force for us watching so much Shakespeare as kids was from my dad. And also one of my lecturers at university, the way she tackled the comedies really helped me appreciate them a lot as well. And so it's maybe an element of Shakespeare's writing that I wouldn't think are as important and as enjoyable as they are. But if it wasn't for her, I've forgotten how I started the sentence. Moving on, number 4. Do you have a favourite book or film about Shakespeare? And I haven't really seen any. I haven't read, I don't think, any biographies of Shakespeare yet. There's one I'd like to get to, or quite a few I'd like to get to. I've seen a few films and things with Shakespeare in it. But my favourite thing, it's not really a film, it's a TV show. It's the BBC sort of sitcom Upstart Crow, which is all about Shakespeare, and it's kind of satirical and a bit goofy, but just the way that they work the plots from certain plays into the episodes themselves is always really funny. So if you're a Shakespeare nerd and you want a bit of a laugh, it's a good one. Number 5, which character in Shakespeare most resembles you, and in what way? And this is one of the ones I found the hardest. I think, I just don't really know who to pick, really. But I was thinking a little bit about the Tempest, and I suppose for a long while the Tempest was my favourite Shakespeare play, and I suppose that maybe at least part of that would be because of the character of Ariel, and how, I suppose, I don't know, in a way, when I was sort of young adult, sort of coming into my late teens and towards my early 20s, that kind of striving for independence was kind of relatable, I suppose. So even though my relationship with my family was very different to that between Ariel and Prospero, there was something in there that I could relate to, and but that's probably about as far as it goes. I don't know any magic or anything. Number 6, which play would you most like to see performed in a theatre, and why? And for me, it would be King Lear. So a couple of months ago, I read King Lear for the first time, and I was so impressed. I read it straight again. I was just blown away by King Lear, and it's such such an emotional and immediate play, and really, really intense in what's happening emotionally, but in the language, and I'm just imagining if the way it's delivered is that intense, then it must be quite an unforgettable theatre experience. So yeah, I'd like to see King Lear. Number 7 is which actor throughout history would you most like to have seen play Hamlet in their prime, and why? And my reason for this isn't that I think this actor would necessarily be the best Hamlet. I don't really know who I would think would be the best person to play Hamlet. But I'd quite like to see, I'm sure that there must be recordings, and I just haven't got round to them yet, I'd like to see Ian McKellen as Hamlet. I know my parents had a DVD of Ian McKellen and Judi Dench together in Macbeth. But I'd really quite like to see Ian McKellen as Hamlet, mainly because with the age I am, most things I've seen Ian McKellen in, he's been older, and I just think of him as being one of those people who's eternally old, like my grandparents, and so to see him younger, and particularly such a pivotal role like Hamlet, I think would be really, really interesting. Um, I'd also, another one I've been wanting to watch and just haven't got around to is Kenneth Branagh's film adaptation of Hamlet. And again, I just need to get around to it, but I've been really intrigued about that for quite a few years now, and I need to track that one down. Number 8, deliver your favourite speech or soliloquy from Shakespeare, or from a Shakespeare play. And this is from Julius Caesar, which is, I think, one of the few history plays that I've read. And I just love this scene. It's a really, really, really famous speech. And I love it just because of, it's just a really impressive piece of writing. It's just such convincing rhetoric, and it's at Caesar's funeral. It's Mark Antony's speech, and yeah, it's just so convincing. It just grabs you, even though you know it's a barefaced lie. And I was definitely, when I was reading it for the first time, I was definitely on Brutus's side, and I came into this speech feeling that Mark Antony was a bit slimy and I couldn't trust him, and yet he has me in the palm of his hand in this speech, and it's such an impressive piece of writing. So I'll just read a bit of it, it's a famous one. So, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it were so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, for Brutus is an honourable man, so are they all honourable men, come I to speak in Caesar's funeral. He was my friend, faithful and just to me, but Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honourable man. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus was an honourable man, is an honourable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure he is an honourable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? O judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is in the coffin, there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me. So I butchered it, but yeah, I'm sure you get it. So I can remember where I was the first time I read that, and it's just so impressive. I really love that speech. Number 9 is, do any Shakespeare plays intimidate you? If yes, what play and why? I've put here just all the histories. So barely read any of the history plays, and I've seen film adaptations of some of them. I can remember The Hollow Crown, and I can that the BBC did, and I can remember their version of Richard II, which I think I quite liked, but can't really remember much of the rest. So I really need to reread, or no, to read those history plays. I keep meaning to go through them all and make it like a project. But again, it's really it's the only bit of Shakespeare that I just haven't quite got yet, and I need to knuckle down and give it a go, because I really loved Julius Caesar when I read Julius Caesar. I love the tragedies. I really enjoy the comedies, and so yeah, I know that when I give to them, when I get to them and I give them the right amount of attention, I'll really enjoy them. But yeah, at the moment, the intimidation is there a little bit more than it would be for other plays. Number 10, what tips would you give to an intimidated reader coming to Shakespeare for the first time? And I've seen in quite a few versions of this tag, some people give some really, really good suggestions about not being afraid to just admit that it's hard, that, just use whatever helps you read it, whether it's there's all the kind of things that are available to you to make it easier to watch Shakespeare being performed, to hear it, to sort of act it out with friends or whatever. And the only little thing I'd add in there, which is sort of similar to quite a few of them, is to read it out loud to yourself. And it doesn't have to be the whole play, I don't think, but it's something that I've definitely done with Shakespeare to myself in the past, and I do it with poems where, particularly when it's really dense and the language is all knotty and it's not normal English, and you're trying to work out how these sentences work. And I've always found it really helpful to just pick a section and read it out loud to myself, and I'm almost certainly going to trip up and get tongue-tied, and so I'll go over the bits where I trip up and get tongue-tied, and then suddenly on a sentence by sentence level and a word by word level, I'm just getting that little bit more intimate with the text and coming to terms with it, and getting a few bits and pieces, and understanding them a bit more than I would have if I'd just scanned over them with my eyes. And so yeah, that's something that I found really helpful with Shakespeare and other things. Then number 11 is which is your favourite Shakespeare play and why? And at the moment, it's King Lear. I think I just haven't got over it yet, and I'm not sure if I'll ever get over it. In the past, as I was saying, I've really loved Much Ado About Nothing. That was, even though I was already familiar with Shakespeare, that was me coming to Shakespeare on my own terms, and sort of grappling with it, with the whole play for myself, that was totally unfamiliar to me, and then very familiar to me. And then the Tempest I love. It's just, I don't know, it's such a whimsical play, but actually Jason was, what he had to say about the Tempest in his version of the tag was really brilliant, about just the redemption in the play, and the way grace is shown. I thought that was, I thought he really hit the nail on the head there. And there's some really lovely lyrical language in the Tempest. But yeah, really, now that I've read King Lear, there is something to to the language. It's very stark and knotty, but immediate, and yeah, it sort of it's quite jolting, and also the landscape and the atmosphere that's evoked in the play as well, just really, really appeals to me. I was just watching Steve Donahue's version of this, and Steve was saying how it's one of the few um, sort of pieces of literature or theatre where people use the word elemental, and it's actually true of the work. And definitely that kind of elemental thing is something I have enjoyed in Ted Hughes's poetry, and it's there in bucket loads in King Lear, and it's something I've loved in Emily Bronte's writing, and it's there in bucket loads in King Lear. So it was just like just so much of what I love in literature, but there's just so much more of it in just one play. Yeah, at the moment I haven't got over King Lear. Um, and then the last tag, or the last prompt, is to tag some booktubers, and loads of people have been tagged. And I've been away for a little while, so I'm catching up on this tag, and I'm not entirely sure who's done it yet. So there are certain people I've seen, but I'm sure there's people I've missed. So I'm going to leave it as an open tag, and if you haven't been tagged yet and you would like to do this, then please consider yourself tagged and give it a go. So there we go. That's the Shakespeare Journey tag. I hope I did it justice. But yeah, for now, hope you have a lovely rest of your Shaketember. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.